Okay, let's discuss signaling options for pocket survival kits. Once again, in a pocket survival kit, real estate is pretty limited, so we're somewhat limited in our options, but possibly not quite as much as some people might think. So first off, probably one of the first things you'll see in wilderness survival handbooks is signal fire and smoke. Definitely save many lives, but can be somewhat troublesome in certain environments. If you're signaling ground to air, you need to go in groups of 3 with the fires spaced apart according to the altitude of the aircraft. So you need a good 20 meters between fires, and you need to keep a fire burning to light the pre-prepared fire lays for your signal fires, and kind of, unless you have multiple people and multiple fires, you know, and it takes a lot of fuel, and it's can be difficult to achieve, but very doable, save many lives. So just realize that there can be some difficulties with that. If you just build one campfire, it could easily be mistaken for a campfire if you build one solitary single fire. So next we have lighting. A small light in your survival kit, flashed in 3s, or a light that has a strobe feature can attract attention, especially at night. A lot of people leave out night signaling options, so be sure you think about that. Another thing that'll work day and night is a whistle. This is the Acme whistle included in some issue kits. That's a good whistle. This is a Fox 40 micro whistle, also a great whistle. It's pretty well thought out. They even put a little brass coated split ring on it that won't rust. So very well thought out product, and it's flat form factor. You know, both of them have kind of a flat, compact form factor, and they're P-less. So the P, whistles with a P, sometimes they'll freeze up in cold weather with your saliva, or they will, the P will degrade if it's a cork P, and the P can disintegrate over time, and your whistle won't work without that P. So choose a P-less whistle for your kit, preferably a non-metal whistle, a plastic whistle if you're in an extreme cold environment, if it gets very cold where you are, so you don't freeze it to your lips. Another option is leaving notes. Here I just have some Write in the Rain note paper, which I've rounded off in a little paper cutter, so if I don't do that, the corners always fray in kits, so I find that helpful. And here are a couple writing options. This is a refill for a Fisher Space Pen, so it writes on many different surfaces, and the ink is nitrogen pressurized in the cartridge. I noticed on an RFQ that at least one RFQ from the Navy SEALs for pocket survival kits listed Fisher ink cartridges. They used a larger cartridge in their kits. It was a kit put together by Solcoa. I could tell by the RFQ that the components were selected by Solcoa. But Fisher ink cartridges, that's a great option. Another option, if you can find them, is a thin, tiny pencil. They come in some of the prepackaged kits. That's where I got this one. It was in one of the Adventure Medical kits designed by Doug Ritter. So those are a couple options for paper. Writing a note can be leaving a note, especially if you move. That can really help search and rescue personnel. But a good signal, leaving a note on a trail, or if you have to leave an obvious area to shelter, leaving kind of something to attract attention, and a note is definitely a good plan. And on that note, signal flagging tape is included in some kits. I personally think it's kind of redundant because I always include in my pocket kits an emergency blanket with an emergency bivy, and I prefer polyethylene material for the emergency bivvies. For larger bivvies, I prefer the reusable, breathable materials, or reusable blankets like the Nano Heat blanket, or the Combat Casualty blanket, but like the reusable Space brand blankets. But these, if you just cut a little bit off the edge, you have the same material. So since I have both scissors and this in my kit, I have kind of a not endless, but a very good source of flagging material should I need it. Also, if you're in more of an E&E type scenario, you might use a more subdued color Bivy Sack. And if they're also available in subdued colors. I repack them. They come always bundled up in rolls, but I repack them flat so they can pack well in pockets. So it's not very fun to have like a soda can shaped object in your pocket, so I refold them into a flat shape. But to me, the bivy bag is more useful than a blanket, and you can turn a bivy sack into a very large blanket or a blanket and an overhead shelter if need be. It's just a better option to have a bag in my estimation. If you only have room for one thing, I pack a bivy bag along with my PSK, so I have a means of shelter. You just have to realize with these emergency blankets that they need to be used early on while you're still generating heat, because they only reflect heat, they don't produce heat. So if you wait too long to use it, it's not going to do you much good. That's a problem that, there can be a psychological barrier to using what I call break glass in case of emergency gear. That's one and done gear like this, is when you open up an emergency blanket, it's almost like an admission that you're now in a survival ordeal, that you got yourself into a problem. And so there can be or if it's an expensive piece of equipment, some people will hesitate to use it, because not only is it an admission that they need, that they're in trouble, but there's also a financial component, that they don't want to waste their expensive gear. So be sure to choose equipment that you can afford to use and replace when you choose your equipment. So moving on from flagging, another great signaling method is a mirror. This is a glass mirror that I carry in my EDC kit. I just put some leather around it with a brass Chicago screw through it to protect it in my pocket. And I cut out, again, rounding the corners, some retroreflective tape material so I can signal at night in addition to signaling in the daytime. So if someone is looking for you with lights, it's much easier to be seen with some retroreflective tape material, or you can cut that tape up, which I have done, and stick it onto things to attract attention, to leave a trail. You can cut it in 1/2-inch squares and leave quite a long trail to be followed in the dark. There are other smaller, if you don't carry a mirror in your EDC, or you just want redundancy, you might carry a plastic signal mirror in your kit. This is the Rescue Flash by Adventure Medical Kits, which is a well thought out mirror. And an effective mirror, not as effective as the glass mirrors. Some people kind of poo-poo the glass mirrors because glass is fragile, but the laminated glass they have like a resin between, a shock absorbing resin between the layers of glass. Even when it's fractured, even if you sit on this in your pocket on a hard surface and snap it, it will still work as a signal mirror. You'd have to really mess up your, if you break this, you probably are in real bad shape. So anyway, argument for plastic signal mirrors that you may or may not put a lot of weight on. There are other models of this. I have seen some testing, results of different mirrors online. Just choose. Some mirrors are better than others. This is a good model. There's like a Rescue Flash Ultra. That's an improvement on the Rescue Flash. That's not too bad either. It's included in some of the issue kits. Another option is something like this, just a little Fresnel lens pouch with some retroreflective adhesive tape. And this is from Best Glide. It's just a small mirror, probably made out of the repair material for rear view mirrors for cars, I imagine is what that material is. And it's got some Morse code instructions on the back. It does not have the little aiming grid on it, but it does have a sighting hole, and it's not easy to walk the reflection onto your target or scan the horizon. You might also put some signal instructions in your kit. I recommend putting survival instructions in your kit, but you can also just put stickers right on your signal gear like is done here. So that's another option. Is I carry this with together with a Fresnel lens inside my wallet, and so I always have that. Even if I don't have my pocket survival kit, I at least have a mirror and a Fresnel lens and some retroreflective tape. So that kind of opens up your signaling options outside your kit. Lastly, the last thing I have out here is the small vial of potassium permanganate, and it can be used for signaling in snow. I'll show you kind of what it does. It also comes in other countries, at least. I haven't found these in the United States, but I have found them in South America. It's an off-prescribed medicine to this day. It's not as commonly prescribed here in the US, but it comes in little tablets because it's very useful for various medical purposes, and can even be combined with glycerin to start a fire if you are really out of fire starting materials. But you have to, it's a extremely effective oxidizer, and you can see I just tapped just the tiniest bit of potassium permanganate dust in there, and I'll put just a little bit of this, and you see how effectively it dyes this water. So you could put this in your water bag and just punch a pinhole in it, and then spray that on the snow to put your message out there. You know, to put your ground to air signal, like a one of these, or spell out SOS. It's a little bit harder to see the curvy signals, but you can see how visible this would be against a white snowy background. And a tiny vial like this, it can disinfect water if you mix it to just a light pink color, putting much less than this in there, or if you bring it up to kind of a reddish color, it can be used to treat canker sores, and a little bit deeper, it can be used for fungal infections. But if you get it on your fingernails, it'll oxidize them. But I'm kind of getting off the topic into medical here, so I won't. I'll leave that for a whole nother video just on potassium permanganate, and its many uses, and why I still include this very old school tool in my pocket survival kit. Sometimes other guys are kind of surprised that I have it, but I think it's a really useful tool that I include. Another thing most people carry in their EDC is a bandana, an oversized bandana can be used for signaling if it's brightly colored, or it can be used to identify friend or foe as well, or it can be used for medical uses, or it could be used to create char cloth in conjunction with some tin foil or a tin. So it has another multi-use item that you could use. Also, once you have contacted someone, you need to be able to communicate with them. So if you're in another country, you may need some type of pointy talkie to communicate if you don't speak the language, or you may need some money to encourage someone to help you or to purchase food or transportation or whatever you need after you're rescued. And there's the idea of rescue kind of collides at this point with the idea of self-recovery. And so this is probably a good segue into a video on self-recovery rescue and the difference between the two, and then I can show you some self-recovery equipment and why I don't just talk about rescue but also talk equally about self-recovery. So we'll leave it at that, and I hope this helps with your pocket survival kit signaling needs. Thanks for watching.